Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live with yet again another episode of Empire State of Baseball. This is episode number 98, August 19th of the year 2024, airing on Instagram, X, YouTube, and powered by StreamYard. Well, gentlemen, we only have a few more weeks of August left. We're in what they now call the dog days of summer. Labor Day is just a couple of weekends away at this point of the season. Again, baseball's in full swing, scoreboard watching in full effect. I know, especially on the Mets side, a lot of scoreboard watching just because of that tight NL wildcard race. But it's going to be an interesting 6 weeks or so here down the stretch. Joe, how are you feeling on this fine Monday evening?
I am feeling well. The Mets are kind of up and down right now, playing about 500 ball, but they're up to nothing on the Orioles thanks to a JD Martinez two-run homer off of Trevor Rogers. So that's a good thing. I think we are united for once on this podcast, and everyone is rooting for the Mets today.
Yeah. Let's go Mets.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go Mets.
It's exactly what we had a couple of weeks ago with the Phillies, right, Rich and Tom? We were very grateful that you guys...
Just remember what we did for you,
exactly.
Ungrateful little jerks.
I love it. Hey, one little story that I saw over the weekend that caught my eye, and this is not in tonight's lineup, but I thought it was intriguing, was the potential of new starting pitcher rules that are being discussed. And it was an interesting discussion, considering the facts that, hey, your starting pitcher will have to go 6 innings, barring a couple of rules, allowing more than 4 earned runs, throwing a certain amount of pitches. I don't know if you guys saw the article that I think I forgot which forum put it out, but it was very interesting stuff.
It was ESPN. It was an ESPN article. I think that's where it originally came from.
There you go.
They really clickbaited the sixth inning rule. It sounds like, although probably something discussed, would never happen. Like, we're never going to see a time when Major League Baseball does require a starter to go 6 out, how you police that with injuries and all kinds of stuff. I would be interested in the once you lose your starting pitcher, you lose your DH rule, though. I think that would be it'd be an interesting thing. It gives a benefit to keeping your starting pitcher in there. You got situations if your DH is coming up, third the next inning, but you got bases loaded, 2 on in the 6th. Do you hope your guy can get through it because you don't want to lose? Let's say Pete Alonso is DHing, or if Judge is DHing that day. I think that does bring some intrigue. I'd be curious to see that one more than definitely the 6th inning. And there was a third, wasn't there?
There's a couple variations of the rule. I agree with Tom on this one. I think tying it to the DH, especially because those positions kind of go hand in hand. You're DHing for your pitcher. So when your pitcher leaves the game, the DH should leave the game. I think that's going to incentivize not only keeping your pitcher in as long as possible, but it's also going to incentivize these full-time DH guys to be able to play another position to prevent that from happening. So a Shohei Ohtani in a year like this, where he's not pitching, has to learn how to play right field if he wants to stay in the game. So I think that's a benefit. It gets your bench involved, which has become less and less important in the past few years. It makes sure that other players get in the game. I think that variation of the rule is going to have the effect that you want, which is pitchers going much deeper into ball games because you don't want to lose a top offensive player. Also, our team's going to save an offensive player on their bench. Is a JD Martinez for the Mets not going to start at DH when you have a lesser pitcher going, so he can come in a key situation later in the game? So I think it brings strategy back into baseball while giving you the intended consequence of trying to get starters as deep as humanly possible.
You're also going to have a better bench. You can't have a bench. The Yankees can't carry Jahmai Jones all season if you're going to lose your DH. You got to start employing some professional hitters. They're not going to be the same level as a JD Martinez kind of guy, but you need those guys then.
Boy, do I miss
And it
Jemai
also
Jones.
eliminates one last point, real quick on my side. It eliminates the opener crap. It might have been cute when it was just the Rays doing it because they were trying to be different, but it eliminates it, and I will be thrilled once that's done.
Yeah, that'd be bad business for BulkBot on X. They like to throw out those flyers out there. But yeah, Tom mentioning Jemai Jones. Oh boy, do I miss Jemai Jones? Said no Yankee fan. All right, shout out to the chat here. Shout out to Future. What's going on, Future? We also have Sierra Yeager in the building. Happy Monday. This is my favorite part of Monday, Empire State of Baseball. Thomas, let's talk about Roback.
Let's do it. Yeah, everyone hears me talk about Roback every week. Roback is working on right now. I think one of their biggest drops of stuff ever. So we got college football coming soon. I'm sure a lot of you out there are excited for that. And Roback has a ton of officially licensed college football team options in those Q-Zips, polos, and hoodies that we're always talking about. We're talking the big boys, University of Alabama, Texas, Notre Dame, Florida, Ohio State, and more. If your favorite team is not included in that, they have a bunch of different of their state collections. So it just has a little, has the state all over the polo, but they're in some interesting colors, like a maize and blue Michigan, maybe a burnt or not burnt, but like a dark red for Oklahoma. They got some red and black Georgia ones. And if you're from New Jersey, they do have a New Jersey one, a little scarlet and white for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. So some cool stuff going on there. If you're a big college football fan, definitely check that out. Use promo code TWASPL to get yourself TWASPL15 to get yourself 15% off of your first order.
Yeah, no, I always wish I went to a D1 school. I would have been much more invested into college sports. Unfortunately, my team was D3 and did not have a football team. But I can attest, Roback makes phenomenal shirts. I have several. I intend on getting several more. So maybe I'll invest on the New Jersey one. We shall see. But we do have a stacked episode for you all tonight. Give a little bit of the rundown of the lineup, starting as typical with the Empire Express, giving you the latest and greatest in New York Mets and New York Yankee news. So more to come on that in a moment. New York Strike Exchange, our favorite segment, the Bulls and Bears. We always get a lot of fun interactions in the chat, a lot of fun interactions online with this segment. So it's a fan favorite segment, one of our favorites, Bulls and Bears. That's coming up today as well. 3 up, 3 down. We're going to revisit our confidence rankings. We do this segment a couple of times throughout the year to see which positions right now we have the most confidence in, the least confidence in, and who's the most surprising, whether in a good way or a bad way. So we'll get to that segment later in the show. And then finally, our game segment for tonight will be a player to be named later. So it'll be interesting. I know the standings right now pretty close. Myself and Tom right there at the top. Tom with the 1-point lead. Joe closing a little bit of ground. And Rich, they had a couple of good last 2 weeks. So let's see how the game segment goes tonight.
Takes one game to turn Joe or I's luck around. So it's going to be a close fight all the way to the end here. And then I don't even know if there's a prize outside of just bragging rights, but maybe somebody will wear the opposing team jersey. Who knows? We'll figure it out when we get closer. But just quick more shout outs before we get into the Mets side of the Empire Express. Shout out to Swift, Howdy, Rich, Joe, and Corey Fan. I no Tom, I guess. Sorry, Tom. CK for any of you guys at Fanatics Fest. Now that was an event that looked so cool over the weekend in New York City. Essentially,
definitely
it looked
a future
like
item.
Comic-Con for sports.
Yeah, it was weird because we heard about it recently. I hadn't known about it for a while, but I wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out. I haven't seen something like this, and everything I've heard was that it was a huge hit. It was a huge success. That this is going to become a daily year. I also heard it's very expensive. If you you got to pay the price to get in, and then you got to pay for each individual athlete that you want to meet. So I heard you can run up quite the tab going to it, but it's definitely something I think next year that we're going to look into going and could be something that you see us at in the future.
I wish it wasn't run by Fanatics because they are one of the truly worst companies on the face of this earth. I hate them. Have to use them. Absolutely hate them.
A few
I'm
friends
not
of mine
getting
in
a
the
future
community actually,
Fanatics, no Fanatics sponsorship coming to this program.
no,
But that's
absolutely
okay
not.
because they stink, and I don't want them involved with our show anyway.
It's funny. I saw a bunch of people in the community. Actually, was able to meet Michael Rubin, who's I believe the president of the company, and I just wanted to dislike the photo so bad, but I gave him the love they deserve. Busted Knuckles in the big. Oh shit, it's Rich. Oh shit, it's Busted Knuckles. Okay, let's get into our show. Let's talk Empire Express, starting with the New York Metropolitans. Joe, then Corey, what are your thoughts on your team?
Yeah, the Mets are kind of like swimming right on that line there. That they go 3-3 versus the A's and the Marlins. You can't do that. You had to win at least one or two more of those games. The Braves have kind of been middling, but the Diamondbacks and Padres have been hot. The Mets season is going to be this week. I mean, we have 3 versus Baltimore, 4 versus San Diego, and 3 versus Arizona. If you want to stay, what did you say, Corey?
No, just saying tough stretch.
Yeah. If you want to stay in contention, you must play well this upcoming week. Now they're up 2-0 on the Orioles right now. That's why I keep checking over my head from my TV. But the Mets have kind of stalled out of the All-Star break as well as they played early on. The time is now. This is the time. This and the last week of the season where I believe they have the Phillies, Braves, and Brewers to end the season are the most important things. If you are within striking distance, you have to maintain this distance from the Braves. It can't be any worse. You have to put yourself in a position to contend down the stretch. And there's no reinforcements coming. Marte just got back. This is the team. If you're going to win, you're winning with this group. There's nobody we're waiting for off the IL. There's nobody that's going to come here that's going to change the direction of this team. This is it. JD Martinez has to play better. Brandon Nimmo all of a sudden started getting hot. Then he hurt his shoulder. He's considered day-to-day. Pete Alonso looks like he had a little life the last few days. These guys need to step up big time. This is the time. If you're going to make the playoffs, it has to be done this week with a statement. You can't get run out of town from San Diego. You can't get run out of the building from the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, this is a very critical stretch for this team because if they come out of this stretch and you're 2-8 over the 10, I mean, you're going to find yourself in a position where you're like 6 games back. You have no tiebreakers. It would be a mess. I mean, the one decent thing on the Mets side, as poor as they played, I mean, they're basically treading water because I feel like the last 2 weeks we've done this show, this might be the 3rd week actually in a row where the Mets find themselves 2 games back in that wild card. So they're still right there. I expect the wild card to stay close pretty much through the season. We'll see what ends up happening. But it's frustrating. And you just saw the tweet that we put up yesterday, too. They went 3-3 in a stretch versus 2 really bad teams that if you're trying to make a playoff run, you're the odd team out right now. Granted, it's still early, got 6 weeks left. But you're the odd team out. You have to take advantage in series versus these low-tier teams, especially when you have this gauntlet of a 10-game set coming up. And going into this 6-game set, I really wanted 5-1. That was what we wanted. We all said it, Joe and myself, last week on the show. 5-1 was the goal. And what ended up happening? The first game of the series, all right, Blackburn got absolutely shelled. Guess what? It happens. The offense actually woke up that game, but by that point, it was too far gone. So you chalk that up as a loss. But the 2 other losses in that set were both games this team should have won. Yep. I mean, you had the day game set versus the A's to wrap up that first series. They were up 5-0. You're up 5-0 on a bottom-tier team. And what happened? Quintana, almost instantaneously after getting the 5-run lead, coughs it back up. Bullpen ends up blowing it. So you lose a heartbreaker versus the A's to lose the series. And then the same thing last night or yesterday afternoon versus the Marlins. You had a chance to sweep the series. You come out. It's a low-scoring game. It's 1-0 most of the game, 1-1. You get the lead. You give it back up. But then the Mets find themselves, I think it was in the 8th inning with 2 guys on. And they couldn't do anything with it. You had first and second, no outs. You can't get the bunt down. Sure enough, the next at-bat is a deep fly ball center field, which easily would have scored the run from third base. But it's frustrating. Almost with the Mets, too, you have to hammer against the Mets if you're a betting person on day games because their day home record has to be dreadful. But it's unfortunate because they had a chance to really make up ground. If they did finish 5-1, they would be tied right now with the Braves. And the Braves are a mess too. They have a ton of injury issues. The Braves right now are having a very Mets season of old with all these injuries down the stretch. So there was a great chance to catch the Braves last week. It's unfortunate they didn't. But we'll see what happens in this gauntlet stretch. It's going to be tough. You got to come out of it 5-5 or better.
And I'm going to
like 6-4.
Listen, I've laid off of him all year. I think he's done a pretty good job with this team, but I'm going to start getting on Mendoza. If I see Ottavino or Brazoban in an important game, I'm going to lose my crap. I'm going to lose it. These two guys cannot be on the mound. I know they just acquired Brazoban, and I know that they're trying to prove that Stearns made a good acquisition. Him and Ottavino cannot be in the game. The Ottavino experiment is dead. Correct. It's done. It's over with. He is a mop up only right now. I want Phil Maton. I want Jose Butto. Jose Butto needs to be in every game you have a lead.
Yep.
He has to be in the game. I don't care if he has to pitch 1 inning instead of 3 innings like they've been trying to keep him. He has to be in the game. He's been almost perfect out of the bullpen.
Yeah.
And so we're going to sit there and we're going to roll out Ottavino. How many times do we have to roll out Ottavino until we give up? The experiment's over. Correct. Ottavino sucks. Use him to eat innings when you get your doors blown off because when he comes in, no lead is safe.
Correct.
0. So I need Mendoza. You got to stop going to the well. You know the guys you can rely upon. We know it's Diaz. We know it's Phil Maton. We know it's Jose Butto. Those got to be the guys. You want to try Reed Garrett until you figure out off of injury whether he's got what he had in the beginning of the year or not. Be my guest. But the other two guys, as far as I'm concerned, they're on the cross next to Jesus. They're done. Crucify him. I don't want him there. I can't see him. So Jesus is in the middle. It's Brazoban and Ottavino on the other side of him.
No, I completely agree. Whenever those two guys are coming in the game, that game is over. And ironically, too. Yeah. But you look at these two New York teams, and it's crazy, too, when it comes to the bullpen problems, how opposite it is. Because the Mets standpoint, there's a ton of relievers I don't trust. Only a few I do. Butto, for example, is one that I do trust. Joe, you mentioned him. But Edwin Diaz has been good. I know he had a rough start to the season, and then he had the injury, suspension, all that stuff, but he's been better.
Yeah.
On the Yankees side of the house, it's completely different because Rich and Tom, we'll hand it off your way to talk a little New York Yankee baseball, but you got a little bit of a cardiac clay. I heard that saying for the first time this weekend.
Boy.
Cardiac clay.
We'll get into cardiac. We'll get into cardiac clay, but I'll stay on your Mets for just a quick second to shout out our guys over at the Shea and Sons podcast. Not sure if this is Keith or his brother Key, but we had Keith on the show last week as part of our.
It's Keith because the comment says Keith.
Oh, it does say Keith. Okay, fantastic. I know how to read now. I guess. Shout out to Keith. Keith, who's chilling here. I know Keith has his own watch along going on with the Mets leading 2-0 here in the bottom of the 4th inning against the Orioles. I reiterate again, Joe can clip this later. Let's go Mets. But Keith was on our show last week as our creator spotlight. Did such a great job. Great episode. So make sure to check out that episode archived on YouTube. That's number 97. And then shout out to some of our Yankees folks in here. Oh, snap. It's Rich Rivera. Oh, snap. It is Big Slick. What's going on, Big Slick? And Christy Evans over at Yankees Pod. Good to see you here, Chris. All right, Thomas, let's get into Yankees baseball. And yeah, we could get going with Clay Holmes and yet another blown save for the Yankees closer, as the Yankees and Orioles are sitting at a dead tie at 73-52. But if we have it our way, hopefully the Mets come out with a big victory over the Baltimore Orioles tonight, be up a half a game after the end of the night. But let's talk about Clay. Brian Hoke tweeted this out yesterday. Despite an MLB leading 10 blown saves, Aaron Boone said he is committed to keeping Clay Holmes in the closer's role for the rest of the season. Clay's the guy. Now, I know we ran a poll on Instagram asking folks who should be closing games for the Yankees. And I could give away one of those votes right now. Thomas voted for Clay Holmes. Are you still sticking to that?
Yeah, because I just don't think there's a better option, frankly. Like, I know Tommy Kahnle has been better as of late, but like, I don't know who else you trust more than Clay Holmes, and I don't trust Clay Holmes really. But like, it's not like there's all these other guys who are just absolutely tearing it apart, striking everyone out. Luke Weaver was so good for a while. He's been a little bit more up and down as of late. I don't know. Like, I just don't know who else you could say is the guy. I mean, if you want to go more by committee, that's fine. And this isn't a defending of Clay Holmes. It's just there's not a lot of other options at this point. I mean, I feel like the Yankees, they'd almost have a better chance. I know Scott Efros and Lou Trevino are still rehabbing the minors. Maybe one of those guys comes up and catches fire. Maybe that's the option.
Ian Hamilton, maybe Ron Marinaccio, who's done nothing but cook in AAA, and the mistreatment of him. But at this point of the season, I lean with you, Tom, because as unfortunate as it is, what can you do now in the stretch run? You didn't go out and acquire the back-end reliever that you could feel confident with in the ninth inning. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, 3-0. Very good. Let's go Mets. LGFM, whatever you people say. But they went out and acquired 2 relievers. They acquired Mark Leiter Jr., who's been god-awful, who's not been proven in his career, who we will talk about later. Spoiler alert. And Yel De Los Santos, who's now pitching for the Chicago White Sox. So you didn't address one of the biggest issues in your bullpen, and you got Leiter Jr., who's essentially Clay Holmes 2.0. And I hate to keep beating this dead horse, but I was so high on the kid Jack Neely. Jack Neely's proven to be the Cubs' best minor league reliever at this rate. Who's touching 97, 98 miles an hour, that the Yankees are still going with pitchers with breaking stuff that have no control. I don't know who you with you.
I will say this. I know you had the Hoke quote up there. I don't know if that was from 2 days ago. Because Boone was also quoted after the game yesterday saying, look, we'll see as we go. We have a lot of really good options when talking about the closing situation. So but Boone's gonna always defend this guys. Yeah. I do think I do think that it's starting to waver. I do think that there's a chance, but again, where do you go? It has to just be by committee at this point.
I think you got to
have an actual closer.
I think you got to start giving Kahnle shots at it, whether it's a full-time role or pick your matchups. Tommy Kahnle pitched well enough and he's a veteran. The spot's not going to be too big for a guy like Kahnle.
The problem with
that's a guy you got to start trying out.
The problem with putting Kahnle in that role is even though he is a righty with his changeup, he is very good against lefties, and he really is the Yankees' option against Devers, against the big lefties. That is the Yankees' card to play there. That's
either way. You cannot. You can't feel comfortable with Clay being your only option. You can't keep going to Clay. No.
But
and especially because you get into a situation when you have a lead in extra innings, you can't trust him to come into a game with a guy on second. You can't. He works around way too much traffic in order to be reliable enough. You have to find somebody that you can bring in that you can say, okay, this guy can get me a clean inning. And I think that it's going to have to be Tommy Kahnle because Clay is not you can't go into a playoff series with Clay as the only option in the ninth inning. That is what you can't do. And the Yankees haven't had many years where they've been in the playoffs and not had somebody that they can rely upon in the ninth inning. This is the first time the Yankees are really going to go into October and not have that ninth inning not be a question mark. And
I told you the Yankees need to go into October and they need to win games 8-2. That's what they need to do. That's going to be if the Yankees are going to go far into the playoffs, they have to slug. That's how they're going to win.
Even with their offense, it's not feasible. It simply isn't. And I understand they have the capability to do it, but they haven't shown the consistency to put up more than 3 runs a game.
They need the starting pitching to dominate, and they need to hit.
Another name that was tossed around that's intriguing to adopt that role, which I disagree with for my own reasons, is Jake Cousins. Jake Cousins, who came up early this year for the Yankees, has been in 23 games thus far. got a 2.10 ERA, 36 Ks for the young Cousins. And again, that's an unfair position to put a young pitcher in, though, to close out games in one of the most criticized closer roles in all of the game. Why? Because who was doing it for about 20 years, and every comparison is always to this one guy who shares the same last name as your boy, and it's completely an unfair take. I know the closer role is meant to be your lockdown guy, but you look across the game, how many teams in baseball actually have that pitcher?
Yeah. And then Rich, too, to go add to your point, too, about potentially experimenting with a kid in the biggest closing job in baseball. We want to talk about experimenting with young kids in different spots they're not used to. What about Clark Schmidt? Because last year we talked with the same type of conversation, and with all those playoff games and down the stretch there, they got fancy putting Schmidt there in the closer spot a lot, and it didn't work out. It didn't pan out. You're putting people in positions to fail. I think, honestly, and I think a lot of you guys have hit on this too, there is no external option at this point, all right? Unless you call up a kid, maybe like a Mets Budo situation, you call up a pitcher from the minors, maybe a starting pitcher, you hope you get some lightning in a bottle. Sure, maybe you can. But at this point, I think the only thing you can do is really just you play the matchups, you play the situation, take it one inning at a time, all right? Sometimes the 7th and 8th inning is more important than the 9th inning. Sometimes it's not. You have to play the matchups, the situation, and really do it by committee in the short term because there is no external option. There is no fancy move at this point. That time was 3 weeks ago. That time is not now.
You can't put somebody who has never closed major league games in the closer's role in a playoff race. Regardless of the team, regardless of the pedigree of the closers of the past, that doesn't work. So from my perspective, it has to be Canley because Canley's a veteran. While he hasn't been a full-time closer, he's closed games before. That's the only move that if I'm a Yankee fan, I would feel comfortable making because that is the only pitcher I feel can keep himself under control.
He's emerged as the Yankees' best reliever. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes.
The only argument you have to that, and it goes to what Corey said about, someone who hasn't done it before, is if you have someone on the minors, it's what 2008 Rays did with David Price. They brought him up young and just kind of let him go in the playoffs. I think he saved one game, but he was really there. Like he was their weapon out of the bullpen. Now, David Price is, had a fantastic career. I'm not saying Yankees have one of those in the minors, but that almost might need to be an option of look at guys who could tick up, who can a guy that you can bring in that sits 95, 96 and maybe let him just cook up to close to 100 in the playoffs and see what happens. At this point, what do you got to lose?
One other thing I'll add here real quick, and it's more of like, it's not even just a Yankee thing, it's more of like a baseball philosophy thing that I've been meaning to kind of talk to Joe, Corey, and Tom about. Joe, you mentioned Tommy Kahnle to step into the role, and more because he's the team's best statistical reliever, correct? But what did they do to keep him in the current role to try to give your offense a chance to put more runs on the board so it's not a save situation?
The problem is Clay's a problem, and you can't trust Clay. And at the end of the day, if you have a lead going to Clay, that's the issue right now. It's not. And we know, listen, we can go up and down what the Yankees' problems were. Jazz has gone down. The Yankee offense is back to what the Yankee offense was about a month ago, which is putrid. Let's be real. The Volpe has not been the way he's supposed to be. He's not been as advertised. Giancarlo Stanton is Giancarlo Stanton. He hits some home runs, but once he gets hurt, Giancarlo Stanton goes ice cold. He's on a wanted poster. You have a carousel at catcher. You have a carousel at first base and third base right now. The Yankees don't have the offense to count on not being in close games. And if you're in close games, you need an arm at the back of the pen that's going to give you a clean close once in a while. And right now, Clay cannot do that. The games are too tight. It's not, and he's not even coming in there with 3-run leads. These are all 1- and 2-run leads he's blowing. So I think they need to go to the switch. I really do. I know I get what you're saying, Rich. What's the point of switching if you can't even get there? But at some point, Maybe Clay turns it back on if he just has a little pressure taken off of him. I don't know, but I would make the switch personally, because at the end of the day, if you can't get the last out of the game, all the other outs don't matter.
Those be numbers I could run outside of this. I'm curious what Clay's numbers have been out of the ninth inning this year. So I think that's an interesting conversation. But before we move over to the New York Strike Exchange, do want to shout out a few people who just joined us here in the chat. Shout out to HO. Damn, I'm late. No, you're just on time. 115 people now. Thank you guys for coming out to another episode of ESB. Mark, Tom's beard keeps getting stronger as the weeks go on, but Corey's still winning. Tom, you want to respond?
It's early. It's early. We went a route. We went for a look. But the beard game, it's we can get back involved with it if the people want.
Aaron Rodgers, and then finally, a member of the ESB family, Sierra Poteet in the house. I am so late today. No, you're just in time for your favorite segment of every other week. It is now time for the New York Strike Exchange. So Corey Favs, I'll give you the option: Bulls or Bears.
You know what?
We just skip Instagram.
Oh, sorry, we did skip Instagram. My apologies. Go. What do we got? Latest and greatest
Rich,
on IG.
you and these spots are just like, what are
Listen,
we
you
doing?
can follow. I'll make this quick because Rich clearly wanted to skip it. You can follow us on Instagram at Empire State Baseball. Join our almost 5,000 followers on there. You can also follow each of us at Corey Favs, at myself at JR Pugs, Rich at Rich J Rivera, and Tom at T Wospil, all on Instagram. You're going to have our archive segments, our reels, our memes, our games are posted on there. And this upcoming segment, New York Strike Exchange, is going to be posted on there. Corey, off to you.
Now, I'll tell you what, I think both teams a little sour coming off the weekend set. We talked about some bad moments, bad players. So I think it's only fitting we got to start with the Bears this week.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so over here with our Bears, and again, relatively even split, 3-2 with the Bears. Jose Quintana right there at the bottom. I mentioned him in my Mets rant earlier today. I mean, Jose Quintana was given a 5-run lead versus the Athletics, and he coughed it up almost immediately. His start before that, not much better. Quintana makes the Bears list. Up next is Mark Leiter, and Rich mentioned Mark earlier in the show as well, talking about the Yankee bullpen options. Leiter, nice 10.38 ERA, 5 earned runs over the last 2-week stretch. So that is not going to get the job done, and not one of your closer options if you're trying to explore some different routes. Brandon Nimmo, again, it's a shame too, because he looked like he was finally starting to break off of that long funk he was in following the All-Star break, but now he's got the shoulder injury. We'll see what's up there. But he did finish 3 on our Bear list, 171 average over the last few weeks. A lot of Ks, too, 14. Very uncharacteristic for Nimmo. Francisco Alvarez, very disappointing. He's maintaining his 2 spot here in the Bears. I mean, he's been a little better, 219. I mean, that's better than the 100s where he was last time around. But he's just not hitting for power right now. No home runs, a 546 OPS. So definitely expect more out of the young promising catcher. And Anthony Volpe. Volpe's had an interesting bull-bear year because I feel like there's been a lot of times where he's switched between both. I mean, Judge, you could end it right now. Judge is probably going to be the top bull of the season if we count every top bull. Volpe is probably the top guy who switched from both sides, Bulls and Bears. And right now he's in one of his Bear stretches. I mean, 109, 5 of 46. An OPS 332. I mean, that's an on-base percentage, 332. That's his OPS. That's not on base. That's OPS 332, 17 Ks. So they're not going to get it done.
This might be the first time that we've had back-to-back. We had the 2 from the Bull list from last time and the 2 from the Bear list from last time had the top 2 spots of the Bear list. But Anthony Volpe has certainly played like a 2. What Anthony Volpe is doing sucks. And at the end of the day, we've had several conversations back and forth. Is this kid the real deal or is he a bust? And I don't know if it's still too early to call it, but he's showcased that he's really just an average player in Major League Baseball at this point. And I understand there was so much touting of this kid as he worked his way up the chain in the minor leagues, but at some point, can you give the kid maybe a day off, maybe two? It's getting to a point where you might have to consider optioning him to AAA. This is how bad it's getting for Anthony. And it sucks because at this run, and this goes back to our closer conversation just now, who's then playing shortstop for the stretch run of the playoffs?
Yeah, listen, Jackson Holliday was number one prospect in baseball. He came up, he was horrendous, and the Orioles sent him down for a couple months, and he's come back, and he's been incredible. Volpe is a very good defender. But frankly, the Yankees have a better defender in the system in Oswald Peraza. He's a better defender at shortstop. He's a better arm. When we were talking about both those guys coming up, the discussion was always Volpe would eventually have to move probably to second or third because Peraza was the better shortstop. So, I mean, I think it's kind of similar in a way to the Clay discussion. It might be too late to do that. I don't know. I don't know. Can you just put Peraza in at shortstop now and say like, hey, hopefully you can get it done? I don't know. It's like this team feels like they're just at a point where they're just trying to like get to the finish line and I don't know. I don't know if they can just cut or not cut, but you know what I mean? Like option or bench a guy like Volpe because I feel like it would just be so weird for the team.
And not to just turn this into a solely Anthony Volpe discussion, but the Yankees expected this kid to be a star. They expected him to be an anchor at the shortstop position for the next decade. And right now it looks like the Yankees have a problem where they don't have a shortstop of the future on their roster at the moment. At this point in the season, they're going to have to ride it out. I think it's too late to. I agree with Rich. I think while you have Peraza here, you need to give Volpe a day off or here and there and start working in days off. But at the same time, I think it's too late at this point after a full season last year, after being the full season this year. He's got to figure it out, and he's got to figure it out up here because right now, I don't think the Yankees do have an option. It's unfair to put Peraza as a full-time shortstop into a playoff race. I think that's unfair for most of these kids. And Peraza hasn't had a great year either. So, and especially with Jazz out, the options are so limited right now. But I think Volpe is at the point where he has now put the Yankees in a position where they thought they had the position of shortstop penciled in, and that is no longer the case. I think Volpe is.
I don't even want to waste my breath on Mark Leiter Jr. He sucks. He's been terrible since they acquired him. But Joe, let me ask you: out of the three Mets guys on there, who do you want to touch on?
I mean, listen, and Nimmo is going to be fine. I'll touch on Francisco Alvarez. Listen, this is a kid very similar to Volpe. The Mets are counting on this kid to be the catcher of the future. Now, the catcher comes with it a little bit different of an expectation than a shortstop. Catchers aren't expected to hit a ton. They're expected to catch a good game, play decent defense. In all fairness to Francisco Alvarez, if you look at his Baseball Savant page, his defense has been well above average, but the hitting has disappeared. He hasn't been hitting home runs. He hasn't been playing for power. And so you really have to wonder, if Francisco Alvarez is up here a little too early, if he's pushing a little bit, whatever it is. When he first came off the IL this year, he was a shot in the arm for this team, him and Vientos. He's kind of been middling ever since then. Now, the last few days, he's been hitting a little bit more. He hasn't been striking out quite as much. He's been trying. I know he's been standing far from the plate. I know a lot of people are complaining about that. He's chasing the breaking balls, but he's a guy that if the Mets are going to make a run, he has to step up. He is the top prospect that they had. And they expect big things from him. They expect 25 plus home runs from him. And right now he's got either 5 or 6 on the year. That's not good enough.
Yeah.
No, not at all. Yep. All right. So we'll move on to the bull list here. Thomas, why don't you do the honors of our bull list here?
I would be so honored to do that. We'll start at number 5. As Volpe went from the Bulls to the Bears, we had Garrett Cole going from the Bears to the Bulls. He was our number 4 better last week, and 5 on the Bulls this week with a good week. 2 starts, a sub-1 ERA, 18 strikeouts in 11 innings. That's the Garrett Cole that you want, and you got to hope again for the Yankees postseason hopes that he's able to just kind of get into that real prime, like where he was last year. By the time we get there, the Yankees need that. They need to ride that if they have any intention on making noise in the playoffs. Number 4, we have David Peterson, also with a very nice week there. Very similar numbers to Cole.
Yeah.
Half the strikeouts, but a little bit better batting average against. And it has a 2 wins, so that's something you love to see out of Peterson. Francisco Lindor, I feel like just constantly finds his way on the Bulls list. He's a guy that I feel like he does get underappreciated by a lot of Met fans and baseball fans in general. But he puts the numbers up. Now, is he putting the numbers up in times where it matters, or is he padding? I don't know. I don't watch enough of the Mets games to tell you, but I just feel like he's always, every time we look at these lists, Francisco Lindor's hitting well over 300. He's got a couple bombs, some RBIs. He's doing what he needs to do to have another good statistical season. Number 1 and 2, you already know who those are going to be. Juan Soto slipped last week because I guess we threw Volpe a little bit of sympathy for being so bad generally, so we kind of gave him a little bit of a nod over Soto. But we got Soto here, a 1.0 OPS, 6 homers in 2 weeks. Hello. And then number 1, we have Aaron Judge, who I guess was just slacking with only 3 homers, mostly because no one pitches to him. He had a 1.2 OPS. His average is batting average 419. His on base has to be over 500 because he just gets intentionally walked constantly.
I think it's just time we should start considering adding a 6th person to the Bull list.
I think it's just the Aaron Judge list. It's just Aaron Judge and 4 other guys who play in New York.
I actually had Soto 1 this time and Judge 2.
Really?
Only because
205 batting average in that time frame.
Well, Soto had more home runs in that time and has obviously they're pitching around Judge a little bit more. So Soto has obviously stepped up in terms of the total production he has provided. Aaron Judge has kind of been limited in how much he can do because he's being walked so much. So I'm just from a standpoint of Soto raising his game the last few weeks.
Corey,
but listen,
Yep. Favs, your thoughts, sorry, Joe.
Yeah, no, listen, from my standpoint, I did have Judge 1. I mean, Chris said it in the chat, is Aaron Judge going to have the most Bulls list in one season ESPN history? He very well might. Right. But I got to give David Peterson here a shout out too, because one thing I'm very happy about that hasn't been talked about too much is that Peterson is playing himself into being a 5th starter into next year's roster. The New York Mets do not have a lot of starting pitching at all under contract going into next season. So I was hoping you'd see a couple of guys step up this year. David Peterson is stepping up this year, and it seems like now he's going out there and he's getting quality starts. And even tonight against a good Orioles team, bottom of the 5th inning right now, he's only given up 1 run. Get through another inning, quality start. So I'm very happy with what David Peterson is giving at me. I'm, again, not expecting him to be a top 2 or 3 starter, but if he continues to play like this, he's locked himself up at minimum the number 5 spot in the Mets rotation next season, which is critical because they just have no starting pitching under contract.
Yeah.
Joe,
we have to shout out Francisco Lindor. I mean, Lindor's been playing a fantastic brand of baseball. Basically outside the first month and a half, he has been playing at an MVP level. He now leads the National League in WAR. If you're a big WAR guy, that's significant.
It feels wrong.
What is it good for?
Well, I know
it is. Well, the only and the reason is Shohei Ohtani is only a DH, and that's probably the big. I mean, as far as an offensive year, Ohtani is far and above Lindor. But the question is going to be, and especially with an MVP race, how much is defense and playing shortstop every single day factor into something like that when you're going up against a guy who is only a DH? And for Ohtani, that's part of his game is pitching, and he can't pitch this year. So that's going to be an interesting
And honestly, put the team expectations in there too. I mean, everyone pretty much had the Dodgers. I mean, actually, I think, Joe, you didn't have the Dodgers in the preseason rankings, right? But a lot of teams, not a lot of people have the Dodgers on paper before the season being a playoff team. A lot of people didn't have the Mets. So that there's a team expectation factor in there as well.
I'll say this. I think we've talked about this on the show before. If a guy's going to win MVP and his team doesn't make the playoffs, especially in this expanded format, I think he has to have an historic season. So I agree with that. If the Mets don't make the playoffs,
they have to be a wild card team.
You can't get it.
Quick question around the room, no explanation. Just give a name. Who's making the bowl list the next time around? Corey, Joe, and Tom.
Mark Vientos is going to make the bowl list. He almost made it this week, but I mean, he's been great. Another big hit tonight, so love it.
I'll go with JD Martinez. Mets need him to step up, and he hit a home run today, obviously, but he was on my Bears list today, so he didn't make our list, but that's my.
I'm going to step out on a limb and say Aaron Judge. I think Aaron Judge will make the Bulls list in 2 weeks. No, it's I feel like I keep rolling through the Yankee rotation and then I keep missing it. So give me Rodon this time. Give me Rodon to make it and finally crack the Bull list. I don't know if he's been on the Bull list all season.
I think he had one.
Austin Wells, and I'll get into that more shortly in our next segment.
He's not playing anymore.
That's a whole other thing. We'll talk about that soon. Trust me. All right, let's talk YouTube though. Thomas, what do you got on YouTube?
All kinds of stuff on YouTube. If you're watching us, hopefully you are watching us on YouTube. It is our preferred platform of broadcasting, although you can check us out on Twitter and Instagram as well. Currently sitting at 383 subscribers, and we would love to get that number closer to 500. Again, we plan to do another giveaway type thing once we get to that number. But again, YouTube is the way to go. It's the best way to get your comments read on the show. You also can check out our clips, full episodes, archived, some of the YouTube shorts as well. So take a look at YouTube, give us a like, share, subscribe, follow. Write it on the bathroom stall at your local bar. Do all kinds of stuff with it. We would appreciate it.
There you go. Thank you very much, Thomas. Quick shout outs to some of the new folks in the chat here. We got Bojo in the building. It's been a while, Brad. Thanks for checking in. We have Mez in the building. Mez is a huge Mets fan. He was with us last week, but he even says Wells over Rushman. Wow.
Oh, come on.
Wells has been hot.
This year he's been better. He's been better this year.
LI Yankee King just wanted to stop in, say hi, and give a like to the stream. Really do appreciate that. And Big Slick calling out Thomas here. Rich, tell Tom to pull up to extra inning space. Join the fellow Yankee fans cooking Joe. Come on, Tom.
Listen, I do pull in there occasionally, but I've had the issue where I can't talk. But the audio just doesn't work. So
you gotta figure that.
Listen, Rich, I'll call you out. I've asked you to set up some spaces so I could practice it and we could try to figure this out. And you never hit me up. So I
never will. You never will.
Oh man,
offline conversation.
I do want to make.
Online conversation.
I want to make a comment on the Wells over Rushman comment too, because Rich, if you remember in fantasy baseball, we were trying to do a Rushman trade, and what turned me and Matt off that trade was looking at the last 14 and the last 30-day stats. I'm like, wow, Wells has actually been better. So we're like, is it worth it?
If you look at the season entirety, he's been better. Listen, I would trade Austin Wells. I would drive him to Baltimore myself to trade him for Adley Rutschman. But Austin Wells is having a better season than him offensively.
So
it's not a question.
Smooth transition. 3 up, 3 down. It's been a while since we've done our confidence rankings. We're going to go through the room. Mets, Yankees. I can't even wait to see the chat because Joe's got a look on his face that we got to get to. But we're going to go around the room and ask 3 questions. Which position on either team are you most confident in? Which position are you least confident in? And which player, whether good or bad, have you been most surprised with as of late? So, you know what? I'll start with the Yankee side of the house, and I'll kick things off. And I'll throw it around to Tom, then Joe, then Corey. Because the player of most confidence, and I know, listen, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, fantastic.
Why are you so angry with me?
And I'm sure Mr. Wospil will be talking about either of those 2 players. But for the sake of changing things up, I am going to talk about Austin Wells and the catching position. I am the most confident outside of Juan Soto / Aaron Judge offensively in Austin Wells. Austin over his last 30 days. This is an 84 at-bat stretch, 333 batting average, 914 OPS, 3 homers, 16 RBIs. Definitely needed production out of not only the catcher spot, but the cleanup spot as well, whereas he's batted. Now, here's the issue that Joe just brought up. Jose Trevino just got activated off the IL. And for all of us who thought, all the same fans who thought that, Austin Wells has played himself into the starting role, there's no way Jose Trevino can take a bat from him, even though there's going to be a couple lefties. You got to sit down Austin Wells, every fourth or fifth day, whatever the fuck. And yet Jose Trevino played twice this weekend over Austin Wells, who's been producing.
I think we need to.
You can't be most confident in Austin Wells when he's not playing. He's not playing.
Joe, it's been 2 games.
You can't be the most confident guy off the bed.
Listen, Yankee fans and psychos like Joe who want to run their mouth. I think we need to take a breath and wait a week or two. I'm sure Wells is going to get the lion's share of the at-bats in the next couple weeks. But Wells was basically starting every day while Trevino was out.
But my issue is
he does legitimately need a bit of a breather, and you're gonna start Trevino against lefties. So we can't let's not do this overreaction that Trevino's not the starter. And Boone has said that he's not the starter.
I will, because I don't trust this organization. Here's the deal, folks.
Work yourself up.
How is a young left-handed hitter supposed to get better if they're not facing the best left-handed pitching in baseball? How does that work?
He's gotta face lefties.
Is most likely winning the Cy Young this year. How is Austin Wells not going to get better not facing the very best who throw from the left side?
I hear what you're saying. It's just we're reacting. Wait, Joe, what was that?
Aldi Rushman's not playing in platoon. That tells you all you need to know. About
it also needs to tell you. Listen, again, Adley Rutschman's a better player than Austin Wells. Austin Wells has better offensive numbers than Adley Rutschman in half the plate appearances. So you can take that and do whatever that with what you want.
No one is most confident. Go for it.
Listen, so the obvious one is the combo of Judge and Soto, but I kind of want to put a little bit of a different, historic spin on that. So I was trying to look up who is the greatest, at least for one season, 1-2 combo in Major League Baseball history. You probably wouldn't be surprised to hear it is Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. If you're doing it by WAR, which we were just talking about, how great is it? They have the highest combined WAR, 1927 Murderers Row. 24.3 was their combined WAR. Now this list I have does it by teams. So the next highest team, Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews had at 17.1 WAR. So that's the next best. I'm sure the Ruth and Gehrig are, have some other top ones. Point being this, right now, Judge and Soto have a combined, I think, 15.7 WAR. They could end up having one of the truly best offensive seasons that has ever happened in Major League Baseball, and the best in almost 100 years. That is the territory of production that these two are putting up, and it's something that I know everyone appreciates how good it is, but I don't think people are talking about it in the sense of this could be the second greatest ever to do it in a single season.
And folks, just for the sake of not duplicating the conversation, Tom and I connected before. He wanted to talk about the outfield, so I wanted to change it up and talk about a different position. That's all. But we'll see what Joe and Corey have for us here on the Mets side of the house. Position of most confidence on the Mets side, Joe, then Corey.
It's the obvious one's Francisco Lindor. I'll put the left side of the infield. I'll put Lindor and Mark Vientos. That combination. Vientos has been one of the best offensive third basemen in all of baseball this year. He's going to hit probably 25, 26 home runs when he's all said and done. I don't know where he's at right now, Corey, if you know that number off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, I forget.
Lindor is about to have a 30-30 season. He has 24 home runs and 24 steals at the moment. So I have the most confidence in there. They play every day. Lindor's a Gold Gloves shortstop. He's going to be in the conversation for that award as well as the Silver Slugger. So that's my confidence. My most confidence is that left side of the infield for the New York Mets right now.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much right there with you, Joe, too, because Francisco Lindor would be my one and Vientos would be my two. I mean, those are the top two guys on the Mets right now. I haven't had a Mets jersey, a new jersey, in so long. Probably the last time I got a jersey was like 2017 or 18, a Jacob deGrom. Lindor might be my next one. I mean, he's going to be here for a while. Phenomenal player. So Lindor is number one.
I'll swing it back around to you guys. Least confident position on the New York Mets. Corey, then Joe, then we'll go back to Tom, then me.
Well, right now it's the bullpen, and not so much the back end because I trust Budo, I trust Diaz, but that middle of the bullpen, I can't trust him. Brazoban, we mentioned it before. Stanix had a rough go of it. Ottavino, we've mentioned since day one this year, he hasn't been good. Diekman, when he was still here, couldn't trust him. Thank God he's gone. It's the middle of the bullpen I do not trust in the slightest bit right now.
Yeah, I'm going middle of the rotation. I mean, the Mets don't have a guy that you feel comfortable with in any playoff series having the advantage on the mound over somebody on the other side. Severino has been good. He pitched a complete game shutout the other day, granted against the Marlins. Manaea has been fantastic. Peterson's now had another good game today. He's only given up 1 run. It's 3-1 Mets, by the way. But that rotation outside of those three who are good pitchers, not great pitchers, I don't trust Quintana. I don't know who the 4th and 5th starters are going to be. If they're going to go with a 4-man rotation, who that 4th starter is going to be. I'm nervous late in the year. I'm going to be holding my breath when Quintana takes the mound and when any of these other guys take the mound because the Mets do not have a top-tier arm in that rotation at the moment that instills confidence.
Tom, it's going to be the same question on the Yankees side of the house, but shout out to all the 167 who joined us. This is the second highest number redrawn on Empire State of Baseball, so thank you for joining us tonight. Tom, go ahead.
Mine is, there's a lot I'm not confident in with the Yankees, but if I'm picking one, I'm picking first base. The Yankee first basemen all stink. Ben Rice, it was really cool you hit 3 home runs. You pretty much stink. DJ LeMahieu, you stink. Anthony Rizzo, you stunk before you got hurt, and you probably stink when you get back. The Yankee, if you go by OPS by position, the Yankees have the 3rd lowest OPS for first baseman in the league at a 633. They're a full 100 points below the average OPS of a first baseman. Only Detroit and ironically Houston, mostly because Jose Abreu was so bad, are below the Yankees in OPS by first base. It's a weird spot because also DJ and Ben Rice aren't great defenders. They're not first basemen. They're playing first base. Rizzo, when he comes back, I think he's going to, you wouldn't have thought it when he left. He's probably going to just jump back in and steal that job because they're not getting production out of what's there. And at least he should be a good defender and give you a good at bat and probably get hit by a couple pitches. It's bad. It is very bad at first base. And the Yankees, there's like a lot of other things. We have no options really. It's just
when is
one of
Rizzo
them
back?
I feel like it's very like still quite. He's not even like doing anything real yet. So I don't know. I think they're probably going to pull some
September maybe
shenanigans, and then try to just to get him back and give him a couple weeks to see if he can get himself ready to go. They've done that before with players. They did that with DJ. Was it last year, Rich, or 2 years ago, where he like didn't? He was hurt, and then they had him like they had him play like a sim game in Somerset like the day before the playoffs started, and like DJ's good to go. And I was like, what are we doing here, people?
Absolutely. I mean, with Rizzo, the latest I see on Rizzo, I usually go to ESPN for the injury updates. They usually actually do a pretty good job there. But the latest update goes back to August 11th, so it's not even most recent. Where Yankees manager Aaron Boone said that Rizzo's recently hit full bore off a tragic pitching. I don't even know what the hell Aaron
tragic, the simulator.
But least confident for me is the bullpen. And again, we'll talk about the bullpen once again. Mark Leiter Jr. sucks 3 times now tonight. Clay Holmes has been bad. 10 blown saves leads the league. I would say the only 3 relievers I kind of semi can trust is Luke Weaver, Tommy Kahnle, and Jay Cousins. And even Luke Weaver over the last 11 games has got a 7.71 ERA. So that's worrisome. This bullpen's been terrible. It's unreliable. You can't hand off any score to your bullpen. Hell, I ranted about this last week, and despite the Yankees winning that final game against the Rangers, they let a 5-1 game become an 8-7 game by the end of that game. That's a problem. And the Yankees bullpen, I'm telling you right now, is going to lose the Yankees at least 2 crucial games in the postseason.
I'm telling you this right now. I think the Yankees, because they always try to pride themselves on being so smart and tricking people, which is dumb. I think they, in their minds, Lou Trevino and Scott Efros, they're keeping them in the minors as long as they can, thinking that they're going to like Trojan horse their way in and surprise everyone. And that's their answer. I really think that's what
the
they think is a grand idea. It's a bad idea. That's the problem with the idea. But that's what I think they think.
Well, but you could also opened up a bullpen spot just to have people cycle in and out from AAA. Again, baseball changed the options. It's no longer you send the guy down and it's one option. It's option years. So as long as you have one option year, you can continuously send down a player up and down from Scranton. The Yankees could have extended their bullpen, cheating it by having 2 spots open for players like Marinaccio, Birdie, Yohendris Gomez, Scott Efros, Jake Cousins. Continuously sending these players up and down extends your bullpen. But by acquiring Mark Leiter, who has no options. Having Tommy Kahnle, and Kahnle's been great. He has no options. Weaver has no options. Tonkin, you have to DFA him. Hill, you have to DFA him. Mazie, you have to DFA him. You restrict your bullpen transactions by doing such. We'll take it back to the top here. Last question. Which player on the New York Mets, Corey, Favs, and Joe, has surprised you most, whether it's on a good way or in a bad way? Corey, take it away.
Honestly, in a bad way, and I'm so shocked I'm saying this, it's Francisco Alvarez, because in the first part of the season, he was so important to that team, and he was doing so good in the first part of the season. Then he got hurt. As soon as he got hurt, the Mets collapsed and May started because he was such a critical part to that team. But ever since he's come back from injury, he's just never clicked. And I don't know what happened. The power is gone. I mean, that's a guy I thought was going to hit 30, maybe touch 40 home runs if he played enough games at the catcher position and DH. But the power is gone. I don't know what happened. So I'm going to say Francisco Alvarez.
Yeah, the Mets have a couple candidates here. I mean, Sevy, Bader are both 2 guys the Mets got off the scrap heap. But I'm going to go with Vientos. And the simple fact was that Vientos did not win this job out of spring training. It was Brett Beatty's job. And Vientos turned around, went to the minor leagues. He waited and took his time. And all of a sudden, he's come up and he has looked like a top 3 or 4 third baseman in all of baseball this year. I mean, that he has now played his way into the starting job for third base for the Mets for the next several years. That's the way he has played the game of baseball. The Mets look like they've got a true power hitter and a true third baseman on their hands, whether he stays at third base or eventually moves to first base. If they re-sign PP, ends up going to DH, whatever that ends up being, Vientos has played himself into the future plans of the New York Mets, and that's something that they desperately needed out at third base. I think they just expected it from Beatty, not him, and that's why he's the pleasant surprise of the New York Mets.
Tom, flip side for the Yanks.
So my guy doesn't have the greatest stats. I enjoy him, and it's Oswaldo Cabrera. If you look at his numbers, they're not great. His OPS plus is under 100. His defensive numbers are fine, but you know what? He brings excitement to the game, and I like watching him play. He scored from second on that sac fly, that diving play in Chicago. He brings energy to the team. It's someone that there's part of me that, man, I wish he got some more full-time run and let him just be the third baseman for a few months this year and see what would have happened. Again, too late kind of for that now, but Oswald Cabrera, I love watching you play baseball.
I love Ozzy. I love the role that he's in, but it's not my pick, although I do agree with Thomas. So Joe could cheat by choosing multiple players for the one position, so I'm going to choose multiple players for my surprise player.
I did too.
The entire Yankee starting rotation. Considering where they were from the very beginning of the season to where they are now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I can fully trust any pitcher in this rotation. It's been so up and down. Yeah, Paul Stroman have looked good over the last couple of starts. Not so much prior to that. Luis Hill's been so doom and gloom. Carlos Rodon is falling back into his old habits. Nestor Cortez, it's like, count your days, Nestor, and look at the flowers. This starting rotation is completely unreliable, and that is a complete surprise from where they were just about 3 months ago. So I got the starting rotation as a whole, and that is all. But before we get into our last bit, which is our ESB game, let's talk about X. And on X, we got a lot of cool things, including our post-game space, which is hosted by Sierra Poteet and the rest of the gang. Joe's usually up there. I'm usually there. Corey is usually in there. Sometimes listener, sometimes as called. Tom is never there. So again, I guess Tom
sometimes
and I
you just don't notice it.
We got to work on some practice spaces to get him going, but make sure to check out Extra Innings following tonight's show, probably around 9:15, 9:20 p.m. Eastern time. But yeah, give us a follow on X at ESB Podcast, at ESBNYM, and at ESBNYY for our separate team coverage, at G Gory for Corey, at JR Pugs for Joe, at Rich J Rivera for me, and at T Wospil for Thomas. Join our 3,200. We finally eclipsed the 3,200 mark on X, but join our 3,200 followers today by giving us a follow at ESB Podcast. Let's get into our game, and that is, of course, a player to be named later, and we're going to start things off with the Yankee side of the house. So, Thomas, if you are ready, let's see your 3 hints for tonight's player.
Let's do it. So this player had an 18-year career, mostly as a utility guy, and played 1 season with the New York Yankees, where he won a championship in that 90s to 2000 dynasty. I'm not going to give the exact year he won the title, but he won one of them. This player, if you're familiar with baseball reference, has no bold or awards. So basically, he was never the best at anything, nor did he ever receive any sort of awards in Major League Baseball for the 8 different teams he played for. And this player was also a member of the New York Metropolitans for 2.5 years. So actually a Met longer than he was a Yankee.
Todd Zeile.
It's not Todd Zeile, but that's a good guess.
Okay. Okay.
Won a ship with the Yankees in that stretch.
I'll check the comments.
With the Mets. 2.5 seasons with the Mets.
I think Ventura played more than 1 season with the Yankees.
I think that's accurate. So it was a check swing and you didn't go.
Sure. We'll say that.
He held up. He's talking through it.
I thought Zeile was a good guess.
That was a good guess.
Yeah, not a
That
bad
was a good guess. The right time frame.
He only played 1 Met season.
I just don't want to start doing what I do.
Just ripping them off.
Yes, and just start ripping off guesses and then run out. Like I run out of picks for fantasy weeks. Let me think here.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of some interesting players here. Jeremy Burnitz. I don't think he was a Yankee.
Not Jeremy Burnitz.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was a Yankee.
Feels like a guy
that maybe
Miguel Cairo.
It is not Miguel Cairo, but
He wasn't part of the dynasty years.
No, but you know what? It's a Miguel Cairo, frankly, an Oswaldo Cabrera type player.
Okay.
No.
Some could say it was your father's Oswaldo Cabrera, or
Father's.
your older uncle's, maybe.
The creepy uncle?
We don't talk about him, so.
No, that's true. We don't talk about it anymore.
Creepy. You have a creepy uncle?
May he stay incarcerated.
My God.
Let's think here.
I don't think he played for the Yankees.
Boy, I'm really just drawing a freaking blank here now.
There's some good guesses in the chat. There's not a correct guess in the chat.
So the final seasons, 2.5 years.
And the question is, too, because it could be the Mets at the end. It could have been the Mets early.
This guy played, I'll be honest, I was surprised he played 18 seasons, 15, almost 1,500 hits.
Chili Davis.
It's not Chili Davis.
Damn it. This is going to be a tough one. Randy Velarde.
Not Randy Velarde, but that is a good guess. I love the Randy Velarde guess.
Jose Vizcaíno.
It is Jose Vizcaíno.
Wow, it is.
That's a great
Wow.
one. Oh, damn it, boy.
I almost said Chris Woodward, but I was like, I don't think he played for the Yankees, Chris Woodward, because he played 2.5 years, I think, with the Mets.
Jose Vizcaíno.
Wow.
That's a name.
Pure utility guy. The man had, I had it up real quick here before we move on to Corey's. The man had almost 5,400 at bats, 36 homers. Just the man was just out there to play some defense and run, and
Wow.
18 year career for him. I would have never guessed. I would have guessed like I would have guessed like 8. When I was going through my options, I saw him and I'm like, nah, no way. Then I saw the years. I said, I got to do it.
Love it. Jose Vizcaino. Corey takes the point. All right. We move on now to the Met version of this game. And with the Met version is Corey Favs. So Corey Favs, take it away.
Yeah, no, sir. This one, similar in the sense that a very long career. He actually made his MLB debut with the Pirates in 1992 and played his final season in 2012. So a very long career. It's a pitcher, split almost evenly between the rotation and the bullpen over the course of his career. He was towards the end of his career with the Mets. He didn't retire with the Mets, but was there for essentially 2 half seasons and did make 9 starts for the Mets and some appearances out of the pen. His biggest moment in his career in terms of attributes would have to be he is a World Series champion, and it was against the Yankees with the Diamondbacks.
Miguel Batista.
It is Miguel Batista.
Jesus,
let's go!
Rich with the one-shotter. But it's Miguel Batista. Another one, too, similar in the sense of Jose Vizcaino. I was so shocked how early he started his career. Now, he made his debut in 1992, but then he didn't play again until 1996. So he had a taste of the majors and then a bit of a break.
I will say, timely enough, one of my favorite documentaries that I try to watch every year around this time is 9 Innings to Ground Zero. So when it comes to the Diamondbacks versus the Yankees, I'm all over that entire series. So when thinking about the pitchers, you're kind of limited considering how great that pitching staff was for Arizona. But Miguel Batista, I remember making his way through the majors there. So
nice.
Miguel Batista, I'll take the point.
And Mets have given up the lead. It is now 3-3. David Peterson got through 7, but he gave up a home run to Urias. And
it looks like it was
scored on a balk.
Unearned run. That sucks.
Balk.
Come on. LG FM.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap this damn thing up. It's all past 9/11 here. 9/11 here on the East Coast. Let's get this thing tied up here. We got a couple of cool episodes coming up for y'all, including next week's episode, number 99, the Aaron Judgian episode of Empire State of Baseball, 8 o'clock next Monday. Now, this will be the last Monday at 8 o'clock episode, and I'll get to the reason why. But we do have a special guest joining us. Corey Favs, would you like to tell the folks at home who's going to be joining us next Monday? I hope
it's going to be Corey Favs.
Corey Favs will be on the show next week as well, but we are in conversations with Eamon McEnany. So for those of you who listen to SNY, Eamon's always on the series, whether he's doing post-game coverage, shows throughout the week. His face is always there, always talking baseball. So looking forward to talk not only baseball, talk a little Mets, talk about just general baseball, talk about TV, talk about everything, media. So it should be a fun show next week.
Eamon McEnany over at SNY joins us for At the Plate next week. So be our second At the Plate for the year. So excited for that. But we also are really excited for the episode following that, because although next week's episode is going to be Monday, the following week, it's going to be on a Tuesday, given it's the Labor Day holiday. So obviously we want everybody to enjoy their Labor Day weekend and whatever activities they want to do to close out the unofficial close of summer. But Joe, for that 100th episode of Empire State of Baseball, it's a big one for us.
Yes, it is. It will be the final show this year.
Closing the show.
At 8 p.m. for the season. Why? Because football is starting, and we dare not compete with the NFL, especially when the first game of the year is our New York Jets, ours being me and Corey's. Yeah. So we are going to be watching the Jet game at 8 o'clock, which means we need to wrap up our show on the start of football season at 7 o'clock. So the last one at 8 will be the Tuesday, September 3rd for Labor Day. And everything else will be 7 for the rest of the year.
Correct. And so we'll be back on Mondays following the Tuesday episode. So for episode 101, we'll be back here Mondays, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and that will be the time moving forward. So we're not in the way of M&F and whatever you folks do on Monday nights now. If you wrestling fans will watch Raw, I guess. But that's it for our show. Let's send it around the room. Start with Tom. Actually, I'll start it off, and then Corey will wrap this thing up. But thank you all for joining us here on Empire State of Baseball. All 170 plus of you who had joined at one point, and the extras added on Instagram and on X. Thank you so much all for joining us tonight. Fun episode. Thank you all. Tom, to you then, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for everyone joining us today. Had a lot of fun. And let's have the Mets not fully blow this and make themselves useful for once.
Right. Yeah. Thank you to all that are listening, of course, and hopefully the Mets pull this one out.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. The fingers crossed, but it's late in the game and a tie game. Not good for the Mets lately, but hopefully they pull it out. But again, thank you everyone for tuning in, regardless on X, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you came from. Thank you. We'll see you on the space. Got a little space with Rich and Sierra coming in a minute, so hope to see you there. Take care.